everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today I am preparing my dahlias for overwintering in the crawl space of my house. Now this is a follow-up video from one that I posted a few days ago when I was tearing out my tropical summer border that had been hit by frost. And I was so amazed at how well the dahlias that I had grown from seed from floret flower had performed through the summer. Now, I don't typically overwinter dahlias this way. Here in North Carolina, they're actually hardy in the ground, so I usually take dahlias for granted. But because that bed is devoted just to annual installations, which means it changes twice a year, I didn't want to leave the dahlias there. I've also had some issues with dahlias overwintering because of winter wet. So I was going back in my memory bank about 20 years when I was working as an estate gardener, and we would dig the dahlias and dry store them in the root cellar. Now, of course, I live in a 1990s suburban neighborhood. They did not build root cellars here, so I'm gonna try using the next best thing, my crawl space. Now, one of the things that I remember my mentor, Nancy Goodwin, stressing is that it's not so much about the temperature, it's really more about the moisture for successfully dry storing plants over the winter. So, I've decided that I'm gonna modify my approach. I'm actually going to use some of nature's greatest gift, ground leaves that I have just gathered up from the lawn, mowed them over, and now I have a wheelbarrow full. So the process is quite simple. I've gotten a container that has a lot of drainage holes. And this is a really great plastic pot that I'm not sure where I got it from. You could probably just search the internet. And I have layered on the bottom some of these ground leaves, just like that. I guess I have about 2 inches, maybe 2.5, 3 inches. Now I'm just gonna put the dahlia tubers right in, and I'm going to put them all into this one container. Now, like I said, if this approach isn't successful, it's not the end of the world, because I can just grow these from seed again, and I know that they'll flower because they did such a great job this year. But it would be awesome to have something that was already relatively large to get started with. I really can't believe how successful these dahlias were. It's really given me a whole new appreciation for dahlias. To be honest, I haven't always been a dahlia aficionado, but thanks to floret flower, my opinion has changed dramatically. I also have some great big sweet potato tubers that I'm going to do the same treatment with just to see if these will overwinter. These are also from the Treasure Island series. Okay, now my next step is I'm going to sprinkle some compost on top. And I'm not going to use a lot, and I'm not filling the container entirely with compost, but I do want to make sure that these tubers don't get completely dehydrated. Now, I'm not going to water this at all. So the moisture that this compost has is the moisture that these are going to have for the rest of the winter. And now I'm just going to top dress. Leaves are like the best insulator. And so I really think that the addition of the ground leaves is a huge benefit. But I guess we won't know until next spring when I pull them out of the crawl space and evaluate what they look like. All right, so that pot is ready to get stashed. So now I'm going to do the same process for this great big banana. Just going to put a bunch of leaves in the bottom, and I am going to stuff this root right into this pot. Now, I'm not making this a really big pot because to get it in the crawl space, this is actually going to have to sit sideways. And I'm not going to do any compost in here because the root system on this still has quite a lot of the soil from the garden in it. So I'm just tucking those roots in. Just like that. Remember, in the crawl space, this is actually going to be oriented sideways. And then lastly, I have these two giant Treasure Island sweet potato tubers. And I'm gonna do it just the way I did with the banana. No compost, just set those in on the bed of leaves and then cover them up with leaves. And we will see. All right, let me go show you the crawl space area. Well, it's called a crawl space for a reason. I was definitely hoping to stash these in the next door house because that crawl space is, you can't quite stand up in it, but it's significantly higher than this one. But that one is currently full of tools, and actually the new windows are getting installed and I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to be in the way. So I am going to use my home's crawl space, which has not a lot of head room. And I'm gonna start with the banana. Try to not have all the leaves come out. Oh gosh. Oh boy. All right, get it in lower. Probably for like 10 bucks I could buy a new banana next spring. The lengths that I go to sometimes are completely not economically driven at all. I have an emotional connection to this banana because my friend Justin gave it to me as a Christmas present. All right, in you go. I'm not moving them in very far because I want to be able to check in on them, and I don't want to have to get on my hands and knees and crawl through here too far. And I'm kind of putting them adjacent to this west-facing brick wall in hopes that that will actually retain some heat. And so even if we do get really, really cold, like we can into single digits, maybe that heat that the brick absorbs would, you know, come through the wall. We'll see. I can definitely hear my husband right now saying, what? You did what? What is in the crawl space? And why? Okay. Well, there you have it. It's not always glamorous. And just so you can see, here those 3 pots are. Dahlia right here, so whenever I open the door, I'll be able to see it and access. And as you can tell, here in the south, particularly where I live in Fuquay, Vermina, we have a really high water table, and all the crawl spaces have been plasticized to help reduce black mold issues, which we've had. We had to have black mold remediated about 8 years ago. It was a very invasive process. So this is pretty much what the crawl spaces in this part of the country look like. Not super accessible. Not going to turn this into a basement anytime soon. And while we're here on my back patio, I thought I'd give you an update from my overwintering shed, which is full, but everything's doing really well. You can see the succulents. They're up so high, I can't water them, even though I'd like to. That's the key to overwintering succulents, keep them dry. But because we actually have a frost-free extended forecast, I've ended up pulling out a lot of plants that were in the shed. So, you know, some of the stuff that was blocking my accessibility to my seed and beer fridge have been pulled out onto the patio, and they'll get stashed back in when the temperatures get below freezing again. And I look forward to giving you updates from my overwintering shed and from this dahlia banana sweet potato overwintering project that is now stashed in my crawl space. Be sure to subscribe to Bree the Plant Lady. I will post these updates during my weekly garden tours throughout the winter season. And if you found this video to be helpful, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Happy gardening, everybody!